What is up, Dynasty Leaguers? Welcome into another episode of Drafting Lessons, the DLF TV show, where I grab a guest every single week and we run through a Dynasty startup or Dynasty rookie mock drafts. And so because we're now moving into the end of June, the beginning of July, we're continuing to do our 12-round Dynasty startups, and we're going to be doing a SUPERFLEX one, even though you're going to see that it says that we're doing a 2-quarterback draft. That is just so it properly weights the SUPERFLEX instead of, like last week with Matt Price, we were able to grab Mahomes at like the 108 or 109 or whatever we drafted at. So, so to prevent that and to get something more accurate to your SUPERFLEX drafts, we're doing a 2-quarterback draft today. So my guest today, one of the, you're talking about up-and-comers in the Dynasty and fantasy football community. He writes for Rotoviz, used to write for Dynasty Football Factory. It is Sam Wallace, meteoric rise, man. How's it going, bro?
That's quite the introduction. Thank you. I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to doing a startup.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, dude, you're the ascent, and in terms of understanding the grind, man, it's been awesome to watch you come up, with Rotoviz and doing all your work over there. It's absolutely fantastic. I feel like you pop out an article like every 2 days. It's insane.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been fun. Just been blessed to have had a good chunk of time to, be able to grind some stuff out and surrounded by awesome people. It's been cool. It's been very humbling, but it's been very fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So, Sam, we're going to be doing, like we talked about a little bit off air. This is a SUPERFLEX draft, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then 4 bench players. That gets us 12 rounds. So we're going to be drafting out of the 5th spot. That's what happened when I hit the random button before we hit record. Snake draft, all the normal stuff. We're, PPR, no premiums or anything like that. Just SUPERFLEX, and we're just gonna go in and start drafting.
Let's do it.
Cool. Before we get into this, let me ask you real quick. Do you have a generic SUPERFLEX startup strategy? Are you a heavy quarterback guy, maybe waiting on quarterbacks, maybe your general startup in general? Do you like to go for early running backs, or are you a wide receiver stock up kind of guy? What's your overall strategy whenever you enter into a startup draft?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Excuse me. I think a lot of it depends on my initial draft spot and how willing or not willing my league mates are to move around. Mm-hmm. If I can get, I think overall some generic strategies, I like to try to get one, top end quarterback first in the first couple of rounds if I can, whether that means a Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson. But within the first, 15 picks, depending on where I am in the draft, I try to lock up one elite quarterback, and then I'm okay usually waiting on my second. I like to kind of fill out a lot of spots first. I think if I can grab a higher end one early on that really anchors that position. If I can draft within the top 4 picks, that's where I prefer to be, at least for kind of how the fantasy landscape is right now. But I'm a big fan of trading back. I know that's kind of getting more and more common as the league gets deeper with skill position players. Kind of that 4 to 6 round window is where there's just so much value, especially at young wide receivers. You can really load up your roster that way, but it's tough. I mean, I've been in startups where everyone wants to trade back, so then no one's willing to, and you have guys that'll kind of, counter pivot and then they'll trade up for guys. But I would say try to get, I don't want to fade quarterback entirely, especially in a 2-quarterback or SUPERFLEX league. If I can get one big one early, that's great. I usually don't double up on elite quarterbacks early. So I don't ever really spend like my first 2 picks on 2 quarterbacks, try to get one in the first 2 rounds, and then I usually wait a little bit longer after that for my second.
Cool. Yeah, good deal. So I like the anchoring the quarterback position with a young stud, a Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson. Maybe it's Dak or Kyler Murray now.
Yep.
Well,
that's kind of that core right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're gonna see if that actually is what's gonna play out for you here out of the 105 spot. So we're just gonna get right into it. I'm gonna hit the start your draft button, and we'll see what comes out the other side. Alrighty, so
oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So this was we kind of had a quick little we did kind of a peek into what the 105 would look like before we went on air, but Yeah, this one's definitely different. So McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Michael Thomas, and then Alvin Kamara were the first 4 picks off the board. So 1.05 here. We have our pick of the quarterbacks. We got Zeke, Dalvin Cook, basically any of the wide receivers outside of Thomas, like Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin. So, but at 1.05 here, I'd imagine I know who you're picking, but what are we going for here? First pick of the draft.
Yeah, this is as I think close to an auto pick as I would ever have in a Superflex startup. It's got to be Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be he's my 101 in Superflex, so I don't have any issue having him fall to me at 105. The furthest I've really ever seen him fall is, I mean, I have seen him fall to 104 in and amongst the McCaffrey, Barkley, Lamar, and Mahomes. I've kind of seen that grouping of 4 go in kind of different orders, and I've kind of been okay with that order. But I mean, if I can get arguably the best quarterback in the league right now, as in still an ascending talent, Super Bowl champion, fantastic offense. I mean, we don't have to spend a ton of time on him, I don't think, because he's, like I said, he's as much of an auto pick as I think we're going to find in this draft. And to get him at 105, for everybody out there listening, I don't know if that's going to happen in your startup. If it does, don't let him fall past 105. That's your job. Don't let it happen. Yeah, I don't know. What else would you want to add? Would you have changed the pick? Would you have gone Lamar Jackson there? Would you have gone somebody different?
No, that Patrick Mahomes. I'm not an early quarterback guy, but I mean at 1.05.
That's
man. I'm almost wondering. I would almost be concerned if this would be a league where they don't value quarterbacks as much in a superflex. You know,
right?
So I'm always concerned when I'm the first guy to take a quarterback, right? Like you generally like to do that. I have the 101 in my Scott Fishbowl division, and I kind of have that same, I guess, decision between McCaffrey and Patrick Mahomes in such a weird, but awesome quarterback scoring too. And so it's just kind of my fear of being the first guy to take a quarterback, because I want to see how the rest of the league treats them, right? And I don't want to be the one to kind of set that bar and then everybody else not really go along with it. And then now I'm kind of stuck with, a fantastic quarterback, but I'm kind of, behind the 8 ball and all the other positions at least. So
yeah, you bring up a good point with you want to be aggressive in drafts. Like I don't have a problem, I like what you said though, about not always wanting to be the first one to like start a run. And I'm just kind of thinking of like runs, how they happen throughout a draft. Like you never want to start one, you never want to finish one. Like you always want to be able to, like, if there's a big tight end run, you don't want to be finishing it up and feeling like you have to take one because 5 or 6 went in front of you. But yeah, I mean, I feel like if you're at 101, for me, it's a no-brainer, but it wasn't always. So I can definitely understand that. Up until probably a couple of weeks ago, I was still kind of back and forth between who I wanted there. But yeah, at 105, I mean, that's value. You don't really see value in the first round, especially in the first half of the first round, but that's value right there. I'd take that all the time.
So I'm curious, when you say that Patrick Mahomes is your 101 and you see, say, McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley go off the board as the first 2 picks, right?
Yep.
Are you looking there? You're at 105. Are you looking at the guy at 103, maybe 104, and potentially looking at moving up for Patrick Mahomes and kind of chase? It's still value at that point, at least according to your board. You have Mahomes 101.
Right. I think a lot of it depends on the league as well. I mean, I don't want to sell the farm to move up 2 spots to get him, even though I think Mahomes is a roster difference maker. I mean, he's going to, like you said, anchor your roster for the next decade potentially with that positional play, especially in a 2 quarterback or super flex league. But then I'll just pivot. If it means at 105, I have to go with Kamara or Zeke or somebody different, and then maybe grab Dak or Kyler coming around in the second round, possibly. Yeah, it's one of those where once you have this spot, it's nice, but it's really hard to kind of pay into that spot if you're not already there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think we need to spend much more time, at least on Patrick Mahomes. Everybody knows what's going on there. So it's gonna be interesting to see where we're going here in the second round already. I mean, the 2 quarterback algorithm effect is kind of coming into play here. So the rest of the first round went Dalvin Cook, Lamar Jackson, Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry, and Kyler Murray. And then the second round went Joe Mixon, Russell Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, and then Juju Smith-Schuster, first 7 picks in the second. So we're on the clock, 2.08 here, at least in terms of quarterbacks. Dak Prescott is still there. And then it's Wentz, Baker, Burrow, Tua, Matt Ryan, a bunch of the other guys.
Yeah.
At running backs, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Eckler, Aaron Jones, whole bunch of these guys. And then wide receivers, still some young guys, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, A.J. Brown. And then we have none of the tight ends have went off the board as well, too. So if you wanted to go the tight end route here in the second, that's definitely an option here. So 2.08, I'm interested to see who you would pick because I feel like you could go one way, but you said that you don't like doubling up on quarterbacks. So I'm interested to see who your pick is here.
Yeah, I'll kind of address that. I'm not going to go quarterback here. Surprised we had 6 quarterbacks go off the board in the first round and a half, I think. And we're kind of right at the point now where I'm actually surprised that Dak is still on the board. I'm surprised that both Watson and Allen went in front of him. Even Wilson, I guess, because I kind of see Dak like in that top 4-ish range.
Right.
So he represents really the end of a quarterback tier for me right here. But I'm not going to pivot. I'm going to go chalk according to the board. I'm going to go with Chris Godwin as my second pick. I'm not really worried about his quarterback change. I'm not worried about his quarterback situation. I would be more concerned as a Mike Evans owner, and I'm not to say that, I don't think Mike Evans is going to produce this year, but Godwin's role in the slot in a Bruce Arians offense, and people have kind of started using that narrative of, is Tom Brady going to use him in like the Julian Edelman, Wes Welker type role as his primary slot target? I don't know, but Brady's playing with a chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove that he can win without being in the Belichick system. I love Godwin's talent. He's young, so if I can get what I think is like a borderline top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty right there to pair with Patrick Mahomes, I mean, these are 2 guys that are going to be pretty much sit and forget for a while for me. So I love where they're at right now, and yeah, this is another pretty easy pick for me.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And it's interesting because I'm looking at the rest of the board. Dak made it all the way to 212. We had 3 wide receivers go after our pick.
Yep.
And all the way down to Dak. So McCaffrey and Dak is a disgusting start.
Say if you at the 101, you have to be very happy with that. The fact that you might be kicking yourself saying I could have gone Mahomes and Dak to start, but yeah, you couldn't have really asked for a much better start than the 101.
Yeah, no, yeah, that is awesome. But I mean, in terms of Chris Godwin, man, Penn Stater here.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that connection. Love
Chris Godwin. And I'm all about, Tom Brady and his fit with Tom Brady. I actually tweeted out from 2 graphs from airyards.com. It was Julian Edelman's A-dot last year and Chris Godwin's A-dot. And it was very, very similar, in terms of their overall fits and how they're used and how Brady likes to throw to them. And we know that Julian Edelman was a PPR monster with Tom Brady. I think Chris Godwin is going to do the exact same thing. He's just a younger, more electric version of Julian Edelman. And I think Brady's going to love him. And that Bruce Arians system, like you said, it's going to be awesome. And I think also in terms of Godwin and his value, I don't see a world where he actually loses value unless for some reason he tanks with Brady. And then Brady retires. So now there's even more question marks around his quarterback situation. Right. That he might lose some value, but he's still super young, has already been super productive. I mean, we saw Juju put up a monster year 2 years ago, had a really down season with injured quarterbacks. There's still question marks around Big Ben, and he's still up here. So really Godwin is going to be a safe asset. And if not potentially an ascending asset, if he could climb over, Juju, I think he's also going to be up there potentially over Devontae Adams, maybe DeAndre Hopkins, just because of the age argument as well, too. He's an ascending asset. I love the start that you have so far with Mahomes and Chris Godwin. And now we're going to be here at the 3.05 with our next pick here. It went Evans, Julio, DJ Moore, Dak Prescott to round out the second, and then Jacobs, Amari Cooper, Leonard Fournette, and Jonathan Taylor to start the third round. So at the 3.05 here, we have a bunch of these running backs here: Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Dobbins, Swift, Eckler, Aaron Jones, Kenyon Drake, and then we get into a bunch of the veteran guys. Quarterbacks, still Wentz, Baker, Burrow, a lot of the kind of similar tier players. Wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Kenny Galladay, OBJ, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, A-Rob, and still all of those tight ends as well, too, if you wanted to go that route. So at 3.05 here, we got a fantastic start with Mahomes and Godwin. Who are we looking to pair with those two?
Yeah, as you were talking, I was kind of glancing over at my board that I have over here on the side, and this is where I'm really starting to not struggle, but really, the first two picks were pretty easy for me. To get my 101 at the 105 was easy. I didn't know. I was kind of thinking targeting a wide receiver with that second pick. I didn't know exactly who was going to fall, so I didn't think Godwin was going to be there, so that was easy. I was really hoping Jonathan Taylor was going to fall, actually. So to get sniped by the computer was a little frustrating, but man, because I got a couple of guys I want to look at, so I kind of want to go, okay, am I going to draft with my head here? Am I going to draft with with what my heart wants me to do? I'm going to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm going to go double dip into that Kansas City offense. First round draft capital, the comps to Brian Westbrook coming out of the coaching staff. I have a little bit of reservation because he really didn't pop until his last year. Was he more of a product of just the phenomenal run that team had? I think there's still some question marks there, but you can't argue the landing spot, his pass catching ability, tied to Mahomes, tied to that offense for the foreseeable future. I think they're going to get him involved. I'm not a huge Damian Williams fan, even if it takes CEH a couple of weeks to maybe assume the workload. That's fine. I think he's going to have a role right off the bat anyways. But again, to have the first round draft pick of the reigning Super Bowl champions, just we know what the running back position in that offense can do. We've seen, Kareem Hunt, we've seen Sharkhandrick West, we've seen Damian Williams, we've seen a lot of these guys have success in that system. And you can argue talent, that's fine, but I don't think CEH isn't talented, but is he as talented as the other guys? Kareem Hunt's very talented. I think he's definitely more talented than like a Sharkhandrick West or a Damian Williams. But yeah, to get him there as my RB1, it'll be kind of fun to dip into the rookie pool here right off the bat. What are your thoughts?
I love it. I actually, I'm curious on your thoughts here. So you said that you wanted Jonathan Taylor to fall to you there. Would you take Taylor over Edwards-Helaire? Is Taylor your rookie RB1?
Yeah, he is. I just think his larger body of work is more impressive. Sometimes people will knock his lack of pass catching ability. He's not a pass catcher. The Wisconsin system doesn't traditionally use their running backs in that system. And I went back and actually looked at kind of try to debunk that theory a little bit. Some bigger name Wisconsin backs, looking at James White and Melvin Gordon. How were they used in Wisconsin as pass catchers? James White is seen as like one of the most premier pass catching running backs in the league right now. He really wasn't utilized as a pass catching back in Wisconsin. It's not because he can't, it's because that's not really how the system works. So I think Taylor has flashed enough as a pass catcher to, add that to his repertoire. I kind of look at it in the same way, and it's not a great comparison, but somebody like Leonard Fournette, who, isn't really a pass catching running back. He doesn't look good catching the ball. He doesn't look smooth. He doesn't look fluid. He had 100 targets last year.
Right.
Now, just because the offense kind of required it, and I just love Taylor's landing spot behind that offensive line. Marlon Mack is a competent running back, but I think he's more of a product of that system than he is a talented back. And, Jonathan Taylor, I don't want to quite use the word like a once in a lifetime player or there we go. That's the word, like a generational talent. Thanks. That's the word I was looking for. But I just like his body of work and his historical comp so much more. But to get Edwards-Helaire, I think that's more than an okay, secondary option.
Yeah, I like it too. Honestly, that he probably would have been my top running back if I went that route too. I'm curious because I might have been tempted by George Kittle here. So I'm curious as to your overall thoughts on early tight end versus going later and just kind of fading the position. Kittle in the third seems like an opportunity to kind of set yourself apart and your dynasty team apart just in terms of that position. Still super young. They just lost Deebo Samuel for potentially the first, maybe half of the actual NFL season for just 2020. Right. So you might see a huge target bump initially this season, but then also, in just the dynasty scope, he's going to be the dynasty tight end one for the remainder of probably the most of his career,
right?
Because he's been so awesome. So I'm curious as to the overall decision between Edwards-Helaire versus dipping into the tight end pool.
Yeah, I definitely was looking at Kittle there as well. He was another one that I was considering at that spot. The fact that I hadn't seen any tight ends go off the board yet, I was kind of surprised that neither Kittle nor Kelsey went either late first or even at the second round up until our second round pick or even our third round pick. So that was a little bit surprising to me. So I guess part of that was, okay, we'll kind of see who falls. I know it's setting setting yourself apart at that onesie position at the tight end. And like you said, Kittle, maybe after this year, Kelsey's probably still going to have another successful year, but he's well into his 30s at this point. He's only getting older. I'm not saying he's not, going to produce and be athletic, but, Kittle's age difference is so offsetting from Kelsey at this point in time. But yeah, actually this kind of worked out. I don't mind punting on tight end early. I know, like I said, setting yourself apart with that one position is nice, but I'll probably be addressing it here shortly. We'll see kind of how these next couple of picks go.
All right, yeah, I'm interested because one tight end did slip back to you in the 4th round. We'll get to that here. But the rest of the 3rd went Eckler, OBJ, Kittle, Miles Sanders, Travis Kelce, Aaron Jones, and AJ Brown. And then Matthew Stafford, Kenny Golladay, Evan Ingram, Cortland Sutton, Carson Wentz, Melvin Gordon, and then Aaron Rodgers were the first 7 picks in the 4th round. So at 4.08 here, the quarterback position still Baker Mayfield, Burrow, Tua, Matt Ryan, Daniel Jones. Running backs, J.K. Dobbins, Swift, Akers, all 3 of those rookies. Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, a bunch of those guys. Wide receivers still DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, if you want to dip into the rookies, Jerry Jeudy there too, Keenan Allen. And then tight end, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, Hunter Henry, Darren Waller, and then a bunch of the kind of later guys as well too, up-and-comers, and Austin Hooper too. So 4.08 here. What are we looking to continue this awesome start to this startup draft?
Yeah, gonna go Mark Andrews here. I was surprised. Yeah, you could see it coming. I was surprised he fell, and it was one of those where I was willing to kind of punt the tight end position in the 3rd round because I still wanted a top end running back, having gone quarterback, wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. And it's one of those situations where I try not to chase positions if I can help it, especially however my board is looking. So, if I'm going to pass on tight end, I don't want to then suddenly reach for one like the next round. If I'm going to commit to kind of waiting on that position until a little bit later, and maybe looking at like a Fant or a Hawkinson or a Gesicki or somebody like that later on, then that's fine. But getting Andrews that late, I think, is nice. He's not going to offer you a ton in the way of PPR scoring like a Kelsey or a Kittle is. Like their floor is just going to be so much higher. Andrew's snap percentage actually really wasn't all that great last year, but when he was on the field, he was targeted pretty heavily. It's a touchdown machine. And I like his connection with Lamar Jackson. Now, it's a very low volume passing offense. They're going to have Marquise Hollywood-Brown a little bit healthier this year in his 2nd year. Miles Boykin hopefully stepping up a little bit. They drafted a couple of wide receivers this year, but I still think Andrews is the number 1 pass catcher on that team. So even though it's a low volume offense, the volume still has to go somewhere. And I think it's going to be pretty heavily distributed between Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. So again, he's very young. He's in a dynamic offense attached to a young quarterback. I think we could be seeing a lot of, I think he's kind of locked in as a top 5 tight end, and that's probably being a little bit, too generous or too lenient, I should say, on how high he can be. So to get him there, just kind of ticking off my positions now. I haven't doubled up anywhere yet, but yeah, getting Andrews there was nice.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And I mean, honestly, taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the 3rd, if you would have told me that I could grab Edwards-Helaire and then Mark Andrews 1 round later versus Kittle and DeAndre Swift at the, as your 3-4 picks, I would much rather have Edwards-Helaire and Mark Andrews than Kittle and Swift. I think if you put that up on Twitter, that would definitely be the winning side as well too, the one that you have. So
the preferred stack. Yeah. Now that for sure.
Right. I don't know if I would have, I don't think I would have thought that Mark Andrews would have came back. Like the Evan Ingram pick kind of solidified it. It was interesting, but I love it. I love it overall. I mean, Mark Andrews, you look at Baltimore's market share with Lamar Jackson. I think the tight ends accounted for like 45% of his passes.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous. And now Hayden Hurst is gone. He's down in Atlanta. Mark Andrews is the man at the tight end position for Baltimore. And I mean, yeah, like you said, Hollywood's going to get better. Maybe Miles Boykin steps in. Maybe some of their rookies that they drafted are going to have some sort of a role as well too. But I mean, this is Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown. This is their team with Lamar Jackson. And I'm all aboard Mark Andrews. I think there's honestly a world where he bumps over Travis Kelce by this time next year in terms of dynasty value, just because of the age argument. If he puts up another season like last year, I think we're looking at dynasty's tight end too for next year.
Yeah, I can see it. It's he has that ceiling. We've already seen what he can do on limited snap share, and if he turns maybe some of that Hayden Hurst work into some of his own, I don't know exactly how that's going to be distributed. I think Lamar probably throws a little bit more this year. We'll see. I don't know if they're going to keep letting him run as much as he did last year. It works. I mean, that's obviously part of his game. He's not going to suddenly become a pocket passer, but yeah, you summed up my thoughts pretty perfectly there.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome pick. I love it. So we're going to move on here to the 5.05. The rest of the fourth went DeAndre Swift, Baker Mayfield, DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Joe Burrow, David Montgomery, and Daniel Jones for the first 4 picks in the fifth. So 5.05 here. We'll look at the quarterback position here for you.
Yeah,
Tua,
do.
Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Jimmy G, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill. Drew Brees is still there, but we're kind of getting a little bit thinner and thinner as this draft is going along here. Running backs: J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, Kenyon Drake, Gurley, Singletary, Hunt, Carson, and then wide receiver still Ridley, A-Rob, C.D. Lamb, Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy, DJ Chark, McLaurin. Bunch of good names still left on there.
There's still so much depth left there. Like, you keep reading off the wide receiver list after every pick, and I'm like, yeah, there's so many guys there I could take.
Yeah, I just keep scrolling down here too. You get to Woods, Jefferson, Parker, Gallup, Hollywood, Thielen.
My goodness.
It's insane here. So 5.05, we have one player at every position. So what are we looking to go at here and double up at one of these spots?
Yeah. Go back to your quarterback list for a second.
Yes, sir.
This is about where I would want to go with my second quarterback. A few guys who I was kind of maybe looking at falling didn't make it. And this is where I don't want to say shoot myself in the foot here, but maybe going back, would I have taken Mark Andrews at that spot if I was going to totally punt the tight end position, in that second, third round and go elsewhere? Maybe. But Daniel Jones is a big target of mine that I was hoping was going to make it at least to the fifth round. So I'm a little surprised that he went earlier. So, man, the computer here at 104 has taken Jonathan Taylor from me and now Daniel Jones. I was pretty set on taking a quarterback here in this pick anyways, just kind of targeting whatever tier was going to be left. But looking at how my team is set up right now, it's young, which I like. And one of the ways I like to build dynasty teams if I can in a startup is I want to go young, but I want to be able to still compete. And that's kind of a sweet spot that I think a lot of people want to fall into. I don't have a problem, hammering veterans if I really want to try to win now. Drafting Julio Jones, drafting guys like that I think are, aging but are still stars in the league. But my team is young across every position. Like nobody is more than a 3-year vet at their position, I don't think, across my starters. We'll see how this works out for me later on, but I'm gonna go with Tua on this pick. Now, I'm not anticipating him starting much, if at all, this season. There's no reason for the team to rush him into anything. I mean, they drafted him for a reason. They want him to be the franchise quarterback. Fitzpatrick has done an adequate job of kind of keeping that team semi-competitive. I mean, there's a reason they picked as early as they did. It's not like they're a great team, but I think instead of spinning their wheels for the last couple of seasons, that's what it seemed like. They're really doing something about addressing and building a foundation. They're drafting offensive linemen. I think they got a solid core of players across the board. So if Tua does start this year, I don't think it's going to be until way late. I'd have to look at the Dolphins' schedule. I think they have a late bye this year. Does it actually say it on there? What bye week he has? Just out of curiosity. If not, no worries. But I thought I read in an article like, hey, when can we expect some of these rookies to start? And I think he had like a later bye, and they were talking about maybe him starting after that point in time. But so now my goal is going to be is to grab maybe a veteran starter or two at the quarterback position much later to kind of buoy me and get me through this season. But we'll see. That's kind of why we do these mock drafts, is to see exactly where guys go and where they end up. My ideal pick there would have been Daniel Jones. But if I'm building for the future, I just got to find a guy to start at my second quarterback position now.
So they have a week 11 bye. I just looked it up.
Okay.
And then it's actually an interesting schedule for the rest of the year. So assuming, let's say that Tua starts, his first start is week 12. That's against the Jets. And then he plays week 13 at home against Cincinnati, and then at home against Kansas City.
Ooh, okay.
Which I don't know what their defense is going to look like, but in terms of fantasy, he's going to have to throw.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Kansas City's defense
game
was better down the stretch last season than it was early on. Okay.
Right. And then he's at home against New England in week 15.
Right.
But then he goes to Vegas in week 16 against the Raiders.
Okay. Yeah. So he's got some decent matchups there. And I think I would have to go back and look, but I was just kind of skimming through, hey, when can we expect these rookies to start, if at all? And I think somebody kind of penciled into after the bye, or maybe even it was, that Bengals game at home as like the first chance for him to see the field. But okay, interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, just like week 7, they played the Chargers, then the Rams, then the Cardinals, and then the Jets.
Okay.
So there's potential there too if he sees the field sooner.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they start out kind of rough. They start out with the Patriots, the Bills, the Jaguars, the Seahawks, the Niners, the Broncos.
Ooh. Oh. I mean, if you want Fitzpatrick to throw 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, but also 4, interceptions, there's potential there.
I could definitely see where, Flores and the coaching staff were like, we don't really want to put our just now coming off of a hip injury rookie into that kind of mess. But then they're looking at the back half of the schedule and when can they throw Tua in? It might be Arizona, it might be LA, it might be the Jets before the bye. Yeah, he might get week 10 against the Jets, have a bye week, and then play the Jets again in week 12, and then Cincy.
That would be fine.
That's a nice little intro.
Yeah, so I would say, optimistically, I would say probably mid half of the season. There's no way he's going to start early, like you said. They're not going to run him through that gauntlet early on. There's just no reason to. They would be stupid to, even if he says, "Hey, I'm healthy," and he's medically cleared, and all the objective signs are saying, "Hey, he can go." They shouldn't. There's no reason to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm all aboard that pick. I'm interested to see who your quarterback 3 will be.
Me too.
Because I mean, yeah, like you said, if he's not starting for half or more than half the year, but you still want a quarterback in that superflex spot, we'll need a producer here.
All right, so what do we got?
So I'm curious. So let me run down the rest of the 5th. Went Zach Ertz, Tyler Lockett, Keenan Allen, Matt Ryan, J.K. Dobbins, Chris Carson, C.D. Lamb, and then Jerry Jeudy, Winston, Jared Goff, Devin Singletary, Kenyon Drake, Le'Veon Bell, and Allen Robinson were the first 7 picks of the 6th round. So here at the quarterback spot at 6.08, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Jimmy G, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Justin Herbert, Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Brees is there. Brady is there as well too. Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, a bunch of these guys kind of down here. So if you wanted a high-end producer, you could go the Brees route or the Brady route. At running back, Akers, Gurley, Kareem Hunt, James Conner, Keyshawn Vaughn, David Johnson, Darius Geis. At wide receiver, still Calvin Ridley, DJ Chark, Terry McLaurin, Debo, Rager, Woods, Boyd, so many players. And then just for the tight ends, Henry, Waller, Hawkinson, Fant, Hooper, Goddard, bunch of those guys here. So 6.08, I'm curious where you're going to go. I always love to I always feel like I have my pick, but I love to see who you guys end up taking. So where are we going here? 6.08, Sam.
608, I'm dipping back into the rookie pool to address running back again. I'm going to go Cam Akers with this pick. I really I think the potential of that offense moving forward. I know Gurley didn't produce super well last year and obviously is no longer with the team, but I was looking at some of the production numbers from the running back position for the Rams. And one thing they really got away from last year, which now I can predict that they'll go back to, is utilizing the running backs in the passing game. That's what made, I think, Gurley so successful, apart from obviously just being a fantastic running back, but he was phenomenal in the screen game. He had a lot of production, and that, really boosted his PPR floor as well for the longest time. As for Darrell Henderson, I don't exactly know how the Rams anticipate still utilizing him. He's still going to be there. He's still young. He didn't produce super well last year either. Malcolm Brown's kind of, the aging incumbent of the backfield, if you will. The big knock for Akers was always not really on him, but just how atrocious his offensive line situation was in college. One thing that makes me a little bit worried is the Rams had a pretty poor offensive line last year, and they really didn't do anything to address it this year. But I think for him, he's shown that he can produce well despite having maybe a less than ideal situation. Now, granted, that's much different at the NFL level. Defenses are just much more athletic, much more physical than they are in college. as my RB2, I've kind of already committed to going a little bit younger anyways across the board, especially at running back with Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my RB1. I don't like a lot of the other running backs in this tier. So to kind of get him at a dynasty startup after a guy like, Le'Veon Bell, to get him after like a Melvin Gordon, I don't mind him. I'm not a big fan of him switching teams, but yeah, Chris Carson again as well. There's no way that I didn't think J.K. Dobbins was going to fall this far, so I kind of punted on like the Swift and the Dobbins, if you will. So to get Akers here was awesome.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And honestly, if I would have been in this situation, and I'm looking at Kenyon Drake has been falling this whole entire time, I might have went Drake at 608 just for a high end producer,
right?
He's older because he's been in the league for a few years now, but he has like no wear and tear really because he was never really utilized. And so he's still kind of a younger guy in terms of utilization that I think that would have been an interesting pick. But yeah, I agree with you. It was Cam Akers here because I think looking at this, I would have banked on the fact that one of Ridley, McLaurin, and Chark would have fallen back to you at 705. That's kind of what I would have banked on, and Ridley was the only one taken, so we still have McLaurin and Chark because there's so much depth at the wide receiver position. Yeah, like you said, when you were looking at the running backs, it was Akers and then Connor Gurley, Marlon Mack, and now you still have Kareem Hunt, Keyshawn Vaughn, David Johnson, Darius Guys, carry on. Like it gets gross pretty quickly.
Right.
And so as your RB2, two rookies, I'm loving that a lot. It's going to be a fantastic development, and it could start off hot and then get even hotter as you go on and down a couple years from now too. So I like that pick a lot. Definitely agree with it. So 7.05, Ridley, Connor, Gurley, Mack were the rest of the 6th round. And then Hunter Henry, Noah Fant, Kirk Cousins, and Sam Darnold were the first 4 picks of the 7th. So just to keep an eye on this quarterback, Drew Lock, Jimmy G, Tannehill, Herbert, Bridgewater, Breeze, Minshew, Brady are all there. Running backs, like I said, are really gross. Wide receivers, Chark, McLaurin, Debo, Jalen Reagor, Robert Woods, Tyler Boyd, Jefferson, Landry. The list goes on and on. And then at least for the tight ends, Waller, Hawkinson, Austin Hooper, Dallas Goedert, Tyler Higbee, bunch of those guys like that. So 7.05 here. We're building out a really strong young core. What are we looking to continue to add on?
Yeah, this is good. I kept looking at Ridley. I'm a big fan of his. I really like what he's doing. I did a piece on him a while back of, why you should buy high on somebody like Calvin Ridley, who I think is poised to have kind of a Godwin-like breakout. I'm not saying he's going to explode to that level of production, but as far as a lot of the arrows pointing in a positive direction for him. But I can't be mad about it. I passed him out a number of times just because the wide receiver room kept going so deep. Had this been a 1-quarterback league, I probably would have taken him much sooner. But again, that would have pushed everybody else up. Quarterbacks tend to push people down a little bit more. But this is pretty good for me. I'm going to go with DJ Chark for this next one. I think he's my wide receiver 2 right now on my squad. I just pulled something up here quick. Last year, and I only have this number in front of me. I could go into further detail, but last year through week 14, he was the wide receiver 8 overall. So through the entire fantasy regular season and through the first round of the playoffs, he was the wide receiver 8 overall. So he was, almost the top half wide receiver 1. He's clearly the wide receiver 1 on that team. I like that they added Laviska Shenault. I think he's kind of more, I hesitate to use the word like a gadget player. I think that's, he's kind of an all-purpose type guy. Get the ball in his hands. He's an offensive weapon. Right. But for Chark, just his size, speed combination, I think is just outstanding. I didn't realize how athletic he was just because his rookie season was so bad that he was just kind of left for dead for a lot of people. And when he kind of exploded this last year, everyone was like, wait, DJ Chark. And I'm like, yeah, this dude's a freak athlete. Like, I looked at some of his film, and it's different. I don't grind film like a lot of film guys do, so I was just kind of more looking at some of his touchdown receptions from last year. Just his body control, just his size, and his speed and the way he makes contested plays was awesome. I really like that about him. So to get a guy who, for the entire fantasy regular season last year into week 14, was a top 8 wide receiver, I'm in. I love it.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, what really swayed me onto DJ Chark was I hosted a video on DLF's YouTube channel. It was the first episode of Versus, and it was DJ Chark versus Calvin Ridley. And
okay. I know the people who were on that.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. That was awesome. And we did that in a redraft scope, but I think a lot of that can still apply to Dynasty because both guys are third year guys. And it's basically the wide receiver 1 on a lower volume offense versus a wide receiver 2 on a higher volume offense,
Yep.
right? And so it was a really interesting debate and a really interesting conversation. And Michelle Majuk was on the DJ Chark side, and she made a fantastic argument for him that really opened my eyes and shed a lot of light on what Chark actually did last year. And she mentioned the same thing that you said, that he was a like a top 5 wide receiver. I think she used through the first 13 weeks.
Okay.
But then he had an injury and he was still playing through it, but he wasn't as effective. And that's why, those fantasy playoff weeks were really rough. And I think that kind of leaves a sour taste in a lot of owners' mouths with
that recency bias is very real.
It's yeah. And they remember how good he was at the beginning of the year, but then you're like, yeah, he did that, but then he fell off really hard. There's a lot of touchdown volume, blah blah blah. And I mean, I've heard a lot of people talking about DJ Chark in the same light of because he comps very well to AJ Green, and Jay Gruden's now there. He's been able to utilize AJ Green before too. So I'm super excited, and I think it would be really good for him if, regardless is if Gardner Minshew ends up being their guy, then he's going to be able to grow with him. If not, they're looking at a potential of being they're one of the favorites for Trevor Lawrence next year, for Justin Fields next year.
Right.
There's a fantastic opportunity for him to be with a good quarterback where I think he can have an Andy Dalton, AJ Green kind of relationship with him and Gardner Minshew.
Yep.
Or if for some reason that doesn't happen, you're getting a top pick next year, potentially, similar to, how we're looking at like a Joe Burrow or Tua now. I think it's a fantastic situation for DJ Chark. I love him at this range as your wide receiver too. And I think you can just keep piling on a lot of these wide receivers here too, and just getting a fantastic core of all these young guys. So I'm interested to see who you keep on stockpiling this team up with, because I am loving it so far. The rest of the 7th went AJ Green, Damian Williams, Debo, TJ Hawkinson, Kareem Hunt, Adam Thielen, Darren Waller, and then Darrell Henderson, Mark Ingram, Locke, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kerryon Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, and Ryan Tannehill. So now we're at the 808 quarterbacks: Herbert, Bridgewater, Breeze, Minshew, Brady, Haskins, Big Ben, Carr, Rivers, Love, Trubisky, Gross. Running backs: Vaughn, David Johnson, Darius Geis, Sony Michel, Raheem Mostert, Zach Moss, Alexander Madison, Jones, Pollard. Wide receivers, still a bunch of guys. McLaurin made it all the way back, and I was talking about how if he fell to 705, Jalen Reagor, Robert Woods, Tyler Boyd, Justin Jefferson, Jarvis Landry. There's still so many.
Every round, it's the same conversation, and I love it.
And then Hooper, Goddard, Higbee, Gesicki, Hurst at the tight end position. So 8.08 here. I'm interested because we talked about when you might be grabbing your quarterback 3, and we keep getting slimmer and slimmer. So I'm interested to see if you pull the trigger now, wait till 9:05, wait till 10:08. But where are we going here at the 8.08 pick?
Yeah, bring up the quarterback list if you would, please.
Yes,
just
sir.
to take a look one more time. Scroll down a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, you're right. It is getting a little thin, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Go ahead and scroll back up. I think now's a good time. This is kind of the position I backed myself into. So, it's like you said, mock drafts are fun. Hindsight's 2020. Would I have done anything differently? Maybe. But I think that's why it's a decent deal to kind of go through some of these ADP checks and these mock drafts. I am going to lock up Drew Brees with this pick, so I'll take him.
There it is.
I realize he might and probably might be a one year rental for me. He's I don't really know if he's hinted at retirement. I know it's kind of been talked about. I don't know for sure if anything's been talked about from his end. McLaurin did go. I guess that's fair. That's far enough down for him. But I do need another viable starter this year. And if I'm building my team the way I kind of am right now, I'm still looking to compete this year. I'm not totally punting on year one. I have plenty of talent and plenty of depth, or plenty of talent in the top half of my roster right now to make a playoff push this year. So I don't want to totally punt that second quarterback position and, end up with even a Haskins later on as my quarterback 2 to enter the year. And if, optimistically, we talked about earlier, if Tua does end up starting the back half or the back third of this year, even better. He's got some great matchups kind of down the stretch. If he sits all year and starts next year, that's fine too. I have what I still think is going to be a top 10 quarterback in Drew Brees to pair with Mahomes as my quarterback for this year. And if Drew Brees plays longer than this year, great. If he plays longer than this year, maybe I'll try to offload him to a contender next year. If I have this roster and I now rock with, Mahomes and Tua moving forward. So to get Brees here, like you said, it was getting kind of thin. I had to pull the trigger at some point. So he's good.
Yeah, no, I like it. I was really hoping, honestly, that you were going to grab Brees at some point here because he would have been my guy to grab as your quarterback 3, right? I mean, when you look at the rest of your roster, yeah, it's young, but it's also super productive.
Right.
Like Godwin was a top 3 wide receiver last year. I think he was actually wide receiver 2.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Andrews was tight end 3. Mahomes, duh. DJ Chark, you mentioned already, when he, up till week 14, amazing top 10 wide receiver, and super productive. And then, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Cam Akers both hit, both are maybe in committees, maybe not actually in committees.
Right.
That could go either one way. But if they
both provide me a decent floor.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could be looking at a super productive, super young squad. And I mean, adding Drew Brees on top of that, because I think that allows you a lot of flexibility because yeah, if your team might not be producing, maybe Edwards-Helaire loses initial volume to Damian Williams at the beginning, and that kind of hurts you. Maybe Cam Akers isn't what we expect him to be in LA, and you kind of have flexibility where you can see and that you're not going to really make a good push for the playoffs, and you can offload Drew Brees, like you said, to a contender this year while still having Tua in the wings, and Tua is supposed to be a fantastic quarterback already coming in. I think he has a really excellent opportunity in Miami. So it's a lot of flexibility. And I mean, you got him in the 8th round after Jimmy Garoppolo,
right.
I mean, after Sam Darnold, after Cousins, there's a lot of ceiling here and also a lot of potential where you can sell him to an actual contender and, just continue to help lock up your team until they're actually ready to compete.
Right.
Specifically at the running back position. So I'm all about it. I love it.
All right. What do we got now? Couple picks left.
Yeah, we got 4 picks left here, 9.05. Geis, Boyd, Herbert, and Brady were the rest of the 8th. And then Terry McLaurin, Keyshawn Vaughn, Dallas Goedert, and Austin Hooper were the first 4 picks in the 9th. So just in case, quarterback position, Bridgewater, Minshew, Haskins, Big Ben, Carr, Rivers is down there as well too. Running backs, David Johnson, Sony Michel, Raheem Mostert, Zach Moss, Alexander Madison, Ronald Jones, Tony Pollard. Still a bunch of wide receivers. I don't even feel like I need to list all those guys.
Right.
And then tight end position, Higbee, Gesicki, Hurst, Jonnu, if you wanted to grab a backup guy already, even though we already have Mark Andrews. So 9.05 here. I'm always curious. I'm always curious on where you're going to go. So what are we looking at?
I'm always curious where I'm going to go too. I'm going to take a guy who I think is one of the most underappreciated. Well, actually, I mean, I'm looking at 2 of the most underappreciated wide receivers in all of football right now. But I'm going to go with Robert Woods to get him as my wide receiver 3. He's so safe. He's so productive. All he does is produce. It doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to be flashy, but my goodness, it was kind of between him and Jarvis Landry at this point, and I like the Rams' offense and quarterback situation a little bit better. I don't exactly know how Landry is going to be feeling heading into this year. I mean, he's never missed a game. He's just been super consistent and stable as well. But yeah, to get him there, I was kind of eyeing one of kind of either him or Landry as a potential wide receiver to 3. So to get him that late is awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And this is kind of something that I had talked about with Matt Price last week is, when you have created a fantastic core of your team, super young, with the potential for production, you now allow yourself the ability to grab some of these still producing veterans at the back end, of kind of we're in the 9th and 10th round right now. But, this allows you to, once you've built that young core, to go after some of these guys like a Robert Woods, like a Jarvis Landry, like a Devontae Parker. You can go after those guys who will still have value, but are also producing and can, help you out week to week and maybe fill in for some of your positions where you might not necessarily be ready to start. If you have grabbed, say beforehand, you've grabbed, instead of Chark, you grabbed Jalen Reagor, and he's, not 100% into the Eagles system for the first few weeks
Right.
of the 2020 season, you can just throw in Robert Woods
Right.
and just wait for Rager to get ready. And then, you're still awesome in terms of, producing team and competing and all that stuff. So I love it. And I love the flexibility of the team that you can build when you go super young early, but still also with a lot of potential. So at the 10:08 here, so this is part I'm going to let you know, we're going to see a lot of blue here.
Okay.
We're going to see a lot of blue. There's all running backs that go. And it kind of questions the accuracy of it because, when you see a guy like Ronald Jones or Duke Johnson get taken when Jalen Reagor's still there, it's not, not super accurate.
What it is.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so Robert Woods, Matt Breida, David Njoku, Gallup, Devontae Parker, Sony Michel, Will Disley, Raheem Mostert, Alexander Madison, Rashad Penny, James White, David Johnson, Ronald Jones, Duke Johnson, and Zach Moss. So, the running back position gets really gross here. Tony Pollard, Tariq Cohen, A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson, Tevin Coleman, Jordan Howard, Darrington Evans. There's some names here. A lot of potential, a lot of, bottoming out as well, too. Wide receivers are still amazing. Don't need to go about that. And then tight end, Higbee, Gesicki, Hurst, Jonnu, O.J. Howard. Still a lot of great guys there. And then still Bridgewater, Gardner Minshew, Dwayne Haskins, Big Ben. Still some quarterbacks here, too. So 10.08. We got 3 picks left here, at least in this 12-round mock draft. So what are we looking at here in the 10th round?
Yeah, I'm just kind of taking a quick peek over here to my left. You kind of mentioned it before. I'm kind of going to go in for some upside picks, especially with some news that came out recently. I'm going to go with Jalen Reagor with this next pick. Deshaun Jackson is older. He's kind of banged up, dealt with injuries in his career. There's word that Alshon Jeffrey might not, quote unquote, be ready for week 1. That's kind of been always his question of like no real timetable for return. I saw like an Eagles beat reporter come out saying like Reagor could push to lead the Eagles in targets this year. I don't think that's the case because I think Ertz is still going to be like the number 1 pass catching option over the middle for Carson Wentz. I think Dallas Goedert really steps up and has another role, has a nice role again this year. I really like Miles Sanders in that offense. But at this point where I've kind of fleshed out most of my starting lineup, getting a guy like Reagor who has the draft capital. I loved him coming out as one of the top ranked wide receivers. I was kind of hemming and hawing, going back and forth. I see that Tony Pollard went off the board shortly thereafter. I like him a lot too. I was hoping that he might fall another pick, but to really load up on just some ceiling wide receiver talent, with a guy who's athletic as Reagor, who dealt with just horrific quarterback play in college. I love where he's at. So to get him this late was awesome for me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this is going to be accurate in terms of getting Jalen Reagor in the 10th round in the startup draft.
Right.
But, this still gives us opportunity to talk about some of these guys as well, too, just in a regular life. Like, I am super high on Jalen Reagor personally. I think his fit with the Eagles is going to be fantastic. I think Wentz is a great quarterback. I am all aboard Jalen Reagor train for rookie wide receivers. And, I think his ADP is somewhere in the 6th round, maybe.
Yeah, it's much earlier than where I got him.
Maybe in Superflex it's like the 7th, maybe something like that. But yeah, I mean, like this is where like Damian Harris at the 11:03 and Marquise Brown is still there. Like,
right.
So, yeah. But anyway, so we're gonna see, like I said, a lot of blue here. Jordan Howard, Latavius Murray, Tony Pollard, Justice Hill, Nyheim Hines, Tevin Coleman, Damian Harris, and A.J. Dillon were the picks here around our turn. So 11:05, still a bunch of wide receivers. Not so much at the running back position. Still all the tight ends I mentioned at last pick because it was all running backs and still all the quarterbacks I had. So 11:05 here, next to last pick. Who are you really liking out of this remaining list?
Like you said, it's different now because there were some of these running backs that I know probably would still be on the board that I would kind of be targeting around this 11th, 12th round range. And now I'm kind of to the point, it's like, okay, do I want to just kind of keep stacking my team because it looks good in the mock draft, which is fine. I don't mind kind of going RB light early, especially if I lock down some guys who I'm a big fan of early on, especially in Dynasty. Wide receivers have longer shelf lives. They produce longer into their careers than running backs. We know how heavy the the running back position turns over, whether it's contracts, injuries, just, the longevity of that position just isn't very long at all. So, as the computer, kind of zigs, I'll zag, and I'll take Jarvis Landry here with this pick. Again, another guy who I think is just severely underappreciated, hasn't missed a game. His yearly average finish is so great. He's a PPR machine. He doesn't have to score a ton of touchdowns to have a lot of value. I think that offense as a whole in Cleveland, kind of like we say every year, should be better. We kind of keep waiting for that offense to click. They have so much talent, but I think Landry is just such a dependable piece of that. And to get that much, that safe of a floor, I think, I kind of talked about going with a ceiling pick for Rager, but I think Landry's a good safe pick here, which, maybe I could have been a little bit more bold, but I couldn't let him drop any further than the 11th.
Yeah, I'm with you here. And I mean, just looking at the remaining wide receivers here in the 12th round, I imagine you're going to go wide receiver again here. So without reading all the running backs that went off the board, Edelman, Ruggs, Brown, and T.Y. were the only other wide receivers, and Haskins and Minshew at the quarterback position. So to close this one out, let's see, 12.08 here. If you still want one of these awesome wide receivers, or you can go Bridgewater for some quarterbacks or Big Ben or something like that to grab your quarterback 4. Tight ends is still Higbee, Gesicki, Hurst, Jonnu. A lot of good guys, but I'd imagine you're probably looking at them kind of more once we get into the teens, teen rounds and stuff. So, but just to close this one out, 12.08, where are we looking at here?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Christian Kirk. He's a guy I'm a really big fan of. I think he's perfectly suited for a wide receiver 2 role. I actually think the addition of Hopkins helps him a ton because I don't think he's maybe best suited to be like an alpha target on his own team. But on a per game basis last year, he actually out-targeted Larry Fitzgerald despite playing a couple fewer games last year. So you look at the target total, I think Fitzgerald had him by a couple, but on a per game basis, Kirk was very heavily involved in that offense last season. So I like where that offense is going. They play up-tempo. They went no huddle, like almost twice as much as anybody else last year. That's kind of how they want to run their team. And so with Hopkins commanding, a large target share, that's fine. But I like getting a young receiver who produced very well in college, but has, he's gone between a couple of rookie quarterbacks already. Christian Kirk has in his young career. He's part of like one of the worst offenses 2 years ago with Josh Rosen. Then he had to kind of reacclimate to a new coach and a new quarterback last year. Now he has some continuity at those positions. And I think adding DeAndre Hopkins helps a lot. And I really, really like Kirk as a player moving forward. I think he's got a pretty decent floor and some good upside.
So I'm curious because that was an interesting pick. I know that you like Christian Kirk. I've seen you tweet out about him and stuff and done some articles on him. But so I'm curious, one guy that was kind of on my list and caught my eye here, who actually wasn't even drafted at all, at least through these 12 rounds, was Hollywood Brown.
Yep.
So I'm just curious. So would you actually take Landry and Christian Kirk over Hollywood Brown in a startup?
Probably not Landry. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if it was because I already drafted Mark Andrews that was kind of steering me away from grabbing any other Ravens pass catchers. Mm-hmm. I'm still kind of on the fence about, I don't want to intentionally target multiple guys in one team, especially when it's low volume. If it's a best ball league, for sure, because then you're going to get it regardless. You don't have to worry about picking who's going to get the volume each week. Right. That was probably part of it. I guess I'm not super sold yet because he was a little bit banged up last year, but he was very productive when he played. Mm-hmm. A little worried about how his slight frame holds up to the rigors of the NFL. He's a smaller player. Not that discounts him. He's obviously incredibly talented and very fast. But yeah, like you said, he's a guy who I've noticed has been on a lot of people's kind of breakout list this year, someone who could really kind of outperform his ADP. And I mean, as we're seeing here, he went undrafted in 12 rounds. So there's obvious value there. Yeah, so I probably would have taken him for sure above. Well, I shouldn't even say for sure. I would really have to give that one some thought. I think me taking Andrews early I wasn't even really looking at any other Ravens pass catchers.
Interesting. Yeah, I was just curious because he's a guy like I've been hearing a lot of the same things in terms of him being this is his breakout year. Look what he did last year on one leg. Right. That whole thing. So I was just more so curious on your thoughts here because Christian Kirk was never really a guy that was on my radar, especially after that DeAndre Hopkins trade. I'm just kind of worried about his overall, I guess, production as a I mean, he might be a 2-3 now, and it'll be like a for sure a 2 once Fitz leaves.
Right.
But they also have, Kenyon Drake can catch out of the backfield. They have other options, like is Andy Isabella going to get something going on there? There's a lot of guys kind of there. And I know that offense can be very, very prolific, very up tempo, have a lot of opportunity for pass attempts, but I'm not sold on Christian Kirk.
Yeah, that's more than fair. He was kind of a shoot my shot kind of pick here at the end.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like the opportunity to talk about him. That was good. I don't think I've talked about him before on here. So yeah, I love it. So
all right. So how are we looking?
You got to see.
What's the? Oh, I got the C. That's fine.
That's whatever. Yeah, it's mainly because you don't project well in terms of standing.
That's fine.
That's whatever.
I'll take it.
No, I like it. I like it a lot. Your strongest position, quarterback. Your weakest one was running back.
Yep, for sure.
But I like it a lot. And I mean, as we talked about before, this probably isn't super indicative of how a draft would actually go because of all these running backs down here, and the wide receivers and stuff. But no, I love the team overall. Like I said, I've said this multiple times. The core that you built: Mahomes, Godwin, Edwards-Helaire, Andrews, Tua, Akers, Chark. And then grabbing these extra pieces down here like Woods and Landry, and Drew Brees would really, gives you, like I said, a lot of flexibility in terms of production in year one, but then also, potential year-to-year value, or at least in Brees's, case where you can sell him in season when he's actually producing to a team who's looking to make that championship run. So I love it a lot. You have a lot of future, and you have a lot of still competition and competing win now. So
yeah, this was fun.
I love it.
Good to kind of do it in real time. I'm glad there wasn't a clock for each pick. That would have been a little more stressful, but
looks a lot like a Curtis Patrick kind of team. This is a Rotoviz stamp right here. This is Rotoviz special.
I will have to send it to the guys and see what they say if I have the company stamp of approval or not.
Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna have to start calling it DLF kind of has the same thing too. I saw it with Ryan McDowell and then Matt Price last week, and then now a Rotoviz build here too. So I love it. So Sam, thank you so much for hopping on with me and going through all of this. I need to talk with you more just in general as an analyst and get you on more stuff too, because we kind of move into the season. And get a lot more of your analysis because I love it. I love it so much. So thank you so much for hopping on. Let the people out there know if they've never saw your work or anything beforehand, but you've been on a meteoric rise over the past year. It's been awesome to watch, and I highly, highly, highly recommend everybody to go check out his stuff over on Rotoviz, and that whole team over there too. I know DLF and Rotoviz have a fantastic relationship, and I love all the work that everybody over there puts in. So let the people know where they can find you, what you're up to, all that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate the kind words. This has been a fun opportunity to kind of practice doing a startup here live without a whole lot of prep. So even without knowing the draft spot, that was awesome. Yeah, you guys can find me over on Twitter at @SWallace_FF. And as you said, I am writing over at Rotoviz right now, kind of in the midst of a mini series, if you will. I've been working on kind of decoding some backfields heading into 2020, backfields that have a lot of fantasy value, but maybe have some question marks. So my first two pieces I looked at, the 49ers and the Ravens, some of the two most rush-heavy teams in football right now, kind of looking at maybe who's the best value given their ADP, what's kind of the production going to look like in redraft versus Dynasty. And then I actually just had an article go up this morning on looking at the Dolphins backfield, which has two new guys in it. So we really don't have an incumbent starter. So looking at how Jordan Howard and Matt Breida kind of project to share the load in that backfield. So it's been fun.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it so much. So please, yeah, like I said, guys, go check out Sam, all of his work over there at Rotoviz. It's amazing content. And on Twitter too. His Twitter handle will be in the description down below. So to all the people out there watching, all you viewers, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this with us and getting some of Sam's analysis here on all these players going through this startup. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell to be notified every time that DLF, we drop a video on this YouTube channel. That includes all of the rest of these drafting lessons videos, the ADP show every week with Ryan McDowell and Dan Myler, the mailbag with Chris Allen and Adam Wieldy, And then we got some more. We got some more stuff in the works. The new Commissioner Chronicles has been released over the past couple of weeks with Nathan Powell, and we got another show that's in the works right now that we're lining up to potentially start, if not this week, next week. And I've still got some. I'm trying to get some guests for some one-offs and everything to kind of prep for the 2020 season. So a lot of awesome content coming y'all's way here from the DLF YouTube channel. So please subscribe, ring that notification bell, like this video as well too, and leave a comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of Sam's picks here, and we can have a conversation about that. I'll get Sam, I'll hit him up and get his input on some of this stuff too. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next week with another episode of Drafting Lessons. See ya.